Okay, so let's jump right in. When you think about what makes a country strong, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably things like the economy, right? Or maybe military power. But what if the single most important investment, the one that really sets the stage for everything else, starts right at the very beginning of a person's life? The material we're digging into today makes a powerful case that the first 1,000 days are the true foundation for America's future.
So, where do we start? Well, the first clue that something's wrong. It pops up in a place you would never expect. And this one data point, it hints at a much, much deeper national issue. All right, get ready for this number because it's a real shocker. 77%. According to the source material, that's how many young Americans aren't even eligible to join the military. And you know what one of the biggest reasons is? Health issues. Now, your first thought might be, okay, that's a military recruiting problem, but that's not the real story here. The sources we're looking at say this is a massive warning sign, kind of like the canary in the coal mine, for the health of an entire generation. The big takeaway is that this isn't about one single institution, it's a snapshot of a nationwide health crisis. Yeah, that 77% number, it's really just a symptom. The source material argues that the root of the problem starts from the moment a child is born. As you can see here, those first experiences set a kid on a path, either one where they can thrive and flourish, or one that's filled with lifelong challenges. And wow, does this problem have a price tag? I mean, look at this. We're talking about a $4.5 trillion healthcare bill in the US. But here's the kicker, the part that's just wild. A full 90% of that money is spent treating conditions that are often preventable. We are amazing at treating people when they get sick. But what if we could get ahead of it? Okay, so to really understand the solution, we've got to look at the science of why this all starts so incredibly early. And it all boils down to this really specific, critical window of development. In those first few years of life, a child's brain is developing at a speed that's, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. We are talking about more than 1 million new neural connections forming every single second. It's this incredible burst of growth that literally only happens once in a lifetime.
And this chart, wow, it really drives the point home. By the time a kid turns 3, their brain is already about 80% of its adult size. But it's not just about getting bigger. This is when the actual architecture of the brain is being built. It's like laying the foundation for a skyscraper. If it's strong from the start, the whole building is stable. So, if the science isn't enough to convince you, just look at the economics. This is called the Heckman curve. And what it shows, plain and simple, is that the biggest bang for our buck, the highest rate of return on any investment we make in people, comes from programs that help kids in their earliest years. There's a great line in the research, skills beget skills. Investing early just makes every other investment down the line that much more effective. So, given this crisis, the source material suggests something pretty radical, a complete shift in how we think. It's about moving away from our laser focus on treating sickness and instead getting into the business of actively creating health. The whole thing is built around this one big, kinda sciencey word, salutogenesis. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, but the idea behind it is actually super simple and, honestly, kind of revolutionary. It basically flips the entire script on healthcare. Instead of always asking, what makes people sick? It asks a much more powerful question. What actually creates health? And this slide just lays out the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got our current system, pathogenesis. It's reactive. It focuses on what's wrong, the risks, the deficits. But salutogenesis? It's proactive. It focuses on resources and strengths. It's not about playing defense against getting sick. It's about building up our offense, our resilience right from day one. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, right? Creating health, proactive, building resilience, who wouldn't want that? But the big question is, how do you take these huge ideas and actually make them work in the real world? Well, according to the sources, the solution they're proposing has 2 really important parts. One is a pretty powerful new piece of technology, and the other, which is just as crucial, is a boots-on-the-ground, community-driven approach. So, first up, the tool. It's called the Whole Person Salutogenic Assistant, or WPSA for short. The best way to think about it is like a personal guide, powered by AI, that's designed to help families navigate this complicated journey of health right from the very beginning. So you might be asking, how does an AI tool actually do that? Well, the sources give us a great way to picture it.
using 3 fictional kids: Emma, who comes from a wealthy family, Ava, who faces some serious systemic roadblocks, and Liam, who's from a working-class family. For a family like Liam's, the WPSA wouldn't just give generic advice. It would assess their specific needs and then connect them directly to real, local resources, like maybe nutritional support or affordable childcare options right in their neighborhood.
But here's the thing, and it's a really important but. A fancy AI tool on its own is not enough, not even close. Just look at this slide. The ecosystem around a child is incredibly complex. You don't need to read every single box here, just take in the whole picture. It takes a village, right? Well, this is the village. And for any of this to work, all these different parts have to be working together.
And this isn't just some idea on a whiteboard. The source material points to a real-world test pilot happening right now in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. This Thrive in Montco project is a local experiment to see if these principles can actually work on the ground with real people in a real community. And that's where this idea really blows up into something much bigger than just healthcare. By focusing on the entire community, the entire ecosystem, the source material frames this whole initiative as nothing less than a fundamental experiment in democracy itself. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because the source material presents this initiative, which is part of something called Project 2026, as one of 2 very different competing visions for the future of America. It puts it side by side with Project 2025. And you can see right away their core goals are fundamentally different. One is focused on restoring the natural family, while the other is focused on making sure every single child has a chance to flourish. And that leads to very different ideas about what the government should do and how science should shape our policies. But when you boil it all down, the entire argument really comes back to this one incredibly powerful quote from the source. Child well-being is the first act of democracy.
So the logic is pretty straightforward. The health of our youngest citizens isn't just a side issue. It's not just a health issue or a social issue. It is the absolute starting line for a healthy democracy. You simply cannot build a nation of engaged, capable citizens if you don't first create healthy, capable children. And so that brings us to the final question, the one this whole analysis is really about. This isn't just some abstract policy debate for experts to have. The sources frame this as a direct challenge to every single one of us. If it's true, if a healthy democracy really does begin with our children, then what is our role, personally, socially, and politically, in actually building that foundation?